What's up guys, Jun with the Sushi Man here, and in this video, I'll teach you 3 different ways to make a shrimp tempura roll. For those that don't know what tempura is, it's a traditional Japanese dish where vegetables and typically seafood like shrimp is lightly battered and deep fried. It has a light, crispy texture and is great inside sushi rolls. Now, it's far from traditional sushi, but it's become one of the most popular rolls here in the States and internationally as well. And it's fully cooked, so it's great for young kids and sushi beginners that might be intimidated by raw fish. Alright, without further ado, let's jump right in. So first off, the ingredients. And the most important one is the sushi rice. We need about 3 cups of cooked rice, which is about 1.5 cups of uncooked rice. Don't worry, I explain all of this and show you how to make it step by step in this video right here. Okay, next we have some nori, which is dried seaweed. And this time we're going to be using 2 half sheets and 1 full sheet. But if you only have half sheets, it's okay. You can improvise by adding 2 together or just make half of futomaki at a time. I'll explain this more when we get to that section. Alright, next we have our shrimp. And I like to use a larger size, anywhere from 16 to 30. I believe these are 16-20. Tail and shell still on. And we'll need 5 of them. You can also use shrimp that's already peeled and deveined, but get the ones with the tail on. It makes the frying part a little easier. Now, if you want to make things extra simple, then I recommend getting frozen shrimp tempura. It's pre-fried and all you have to do is refry them in oil or pop it in the oven even. Of course, making it from scratch will taste better, but it'll save you a ton of time. I know Asian markets sell it, Costco, Trader Joe's I think has them too. Okay, next to fry our shrimp we're going to need some tempura ko or tempura flour. And you can get this at most Asian markets, but if you can't find it, don't worry. It's really easy to make tempura batter. You just need some regular all-purpose flour, an egg, and cold water, simple as that. And then of course some oil to fry the shrimp in. I just use vegetable or canola oil and then add in a little bit of sesame oil, which is optional. Alright, next we have some kanikama, which is imitation crab. I'll be using 4 sticks. And then 1 avocado, about a 4-inch piece of cucumber, and I like to use either English or Persian cucumber. Japanese cucumber is great as well, but harder to find, at least where I live. And then some asparagus, about 2 to 3 depending on the size. Now that's it for the ingredients to make the rolls, but I always like to add some toppings. And this spicy mayo and unagi sauce combo is perfect with shrimp tempura rolls. We also have some toasted sesame seeds. And then of course some wasabi, ginger, and soy sauce. Alright, that's it for the ingredients. Now let's move on to our prep. Alright, first things first, make the sushi rice since that takes the longest. And again, watch my how to make sushi rice video for step-by-step instructions. Now let's start heating our oil over medium heat. And I fill this so that there's about 2 inches of oil, maybe a bit more. And then a drizzle of the sesame oil, maybe about a tablespoon or so. And while this heats up, let's prep our vegetables. First, the asparagus. We want to cut this at the same length as a sheet of nori. So we can measure it out, cut right here. And then we're just going to blanch this in salt water for about 2 to 3 minutes. So I have my water in the pan here, and we're going to turn this on to about medium-high. Now add some salt. And then we'll just wait for this to boil. Once it starts to boil, we'll put in the asparagus. And then we'll cook it for about 2 to 3 minutes. If it's thinner, go around 2. Thicker ones, closer to 3. And at this time, let's get a bowl of ice water ready. Alright, now it's done, so we're going to take these out and dunk it into our ice bath. This prevents it from cooking further. Then we're going to let it sit here for a bit until it's fully cooled. And then we'll just dry these with some paper towel. And done. Alright, next the cucumber. Now there's a lot of different ways you can cut this. The easiest is to cut it into about 1/2 inch thick pieces, lay it down and slice it into cucumber sticks. But I always like to cut it into thinner strands just because it has a nicer texture to it. But it's all preference. And I have a video that goes in depth on how to cut cucumber for sushi. So check that out if you don't already know how. And it includes this technique which is called katsuramuki. And we typically use it for daikon radish, but it works well with cucumbers as well. So again, watch that video if you want to learn how to cut it this way. Alright, next let's cut our avocado. So first let's cut this right in half. And we're going to save 1/2 of it for later. Now with this other half, we're going to cut it in half again. Now peel the skin. And then we're going to cut this into about 1/2 inch thick slices. Just like that. Do it for both. And that's it. Now let's move on to preparing the shrimp. So first let's peel our shrimp. And I like to peel it all the way down to the tail so that you can eat the entire shrimp. A lot of times this last section is left unpeeled, which I always think is a waste. It's perfectly good meat in there, so why not make it easier to eat? And while you're peeling this, try to get this really pointy part off the end here, right here. It can be pretty sharp, so I recommend taking it off. Now, this is something small, but a lot of times there's this clear piece right here on the belly side. You can leave it on, but I like to take this off as well, if you can. Alright, now let's devein these. And I find the easiest way to do this is to lay the shrimp down like this, and then with the tip of the knife, make a shallow cut all the way down the center of the back. And then if you look, you should be able to find this black stringy thing. That's the entrails right there. Now you can just take this out with your knife or by hand if that's easier. And then we're going to leave it in some cold water so we can rinse it off. Now we're going to pat dry this with some paper towel. Alright, from here we're going to scrape the end of the tails because there's a lot of dirt and moisture inside here. And this is a very important step, so do not skip it. If you fry this as is, the tails will explode, and trust me, it is not fun at all. And it's very easy to do. We just spread the tail and lay it down on the cutting board. Then using the tip of our knife, we just scrape all this out. Just like that. And then just do the same thing for the rest. Okay, next step is to make some small cuts along the belly side. And they don't have to be deep. We're going to do about 6 to 7 cuts from one end to the other. Alright, now we're going to flip these over and do some chiropractic work. So with the belly side down, place your fingers on top and push down firmly but gently, if that makes sense. You should hear like a cracking sound as you flatten out the shrimp, but be careful not to do it too hard where you sever it. You see how it's straight and flattened out now, without it curling back up? That's what we want. And there we go. That's it for prepping the shrimp. Now let's move on to making our tempura batter. Now I'll be using the tempura flour, but again, you could just use the regular flour, egg, and water as I mentioned earlier. So first we're going to sift the flour into our bowl. Alright, now we just add the ice cold water. And this is a 1-to-1 ratio, so 1 cup of water with 1 cup of tempura flour. Now we mix this, but don't use a whisk here. Instead, use a pair of chopsticks and mix it lightly. You actually want to leave some small clumps in there, which helps give it that airy and crispy texture. Alright, that looks good about there. Now we can start frying our shrimp. So very first, we have to check our oil temperature. For shrimp, it should be around 340 to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now of course, if you have a deep fry thermometer, you can easily check this, but if you don't, you can do the old school batter check. Take your batter and chopsticks and shake off some of the batter into the oil. If the temperature is right, the droplets should sink to the bottom and then immediately come back up to the surface. If the drops stay at the bottom, then that means the temp is too low. If it doesn't even sink and just fries at the surface, then that means it's too hot. Okay, so let me check here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's try one more time. Good. You see how that sank to the bottom and then came right back up? That's what we want. And I'll check with this infrared thermometer too, just for good measure. Boom, perfect. Right in between that 340 and 350. Alright, moving on. Now, before we dunk the shrimp into our batter, we want to lightly coat it with flour. And I just use regular all-purpose flour here. And try not to put too much, or else the tempura will get lumpy and lose that light crispiness we're looking for. Okay, now we're ready to start frying. And shrimp cooks pretty fast, usually about 2–2.5 minutes, depending on the size. So just have everything ready before you start frying, like this plate with a sheet of paper towel, and chopsticks or tongs to take it out when it's done. Alright, so grab the shrimp by its tail, and then dunk it into the batter. Then kind of take the excess batter off with the side of the bowl. Shake it off a bit. You don't want to over batter it. And then in it goes. Second one. Now, if you guys have watched my how to make tempura video, at this point I do a technique called hanaage, which is when you add some batter and make it flare up or blossom. That's usually used when we eat the tempura by itself, but since these are going inside the sushi rolls, we're going to leave it just like this. Alright, now I'm going to fry the rest. And you don't want to overcrowd the oil. Try to keep it to about 50–60% of whatever pot or pan you're using. My wok is a decent size so I can fry all these at once, but you might have to separate into batches. And try to flip these over in between to make sure it's evenly cooked. Alright, it's been about 2 minutes for this guy here. So I'm going to fully submerge this for just a little bit. And then we're going to shake off the oil. And there we go. Alright, good job. That's it with the prep. Now we can move on to rolling our tempura rolls. So very first, let's just make sure we have everything in place. We have the sushi rice, bowl of cold water or tizu, nori, our ingredients, makisu, cutting board, clean towel. And this makisu is wrapped in plastic so we can roll our inside out rolls. If you don't know how to do this, watch my original how to roll sushi video with the link right over here. Now this first roll we're going to make is a tatemaki style, which is a vertical roll. And this nori is going to sit vertically like this. This is the tempura roll that we created for our menu and it was always a huge hit. So first we're going to lay the nori vertically like this with the rough side facing up. And then wet your hands. Spread it around your palms and in between your fingers. Just enough where it's shiny, not so much where it's dripping though. Okay, and then grab a ball of rice about the size of an apple. And then we're going to spread this on our nori evenly all the way to the edges. And I like to grind some sesame seeds on here, but it's totally optional. Now we flip this over so that the nori side is on top. And when you do this, try to leave about an inch of space from the bottom of the makisu to the bottom of the nori. Now we add in our ingredients. For this one, we're going to put in some avocado, cucumber, kanikama, and then 1 shrimp tempura. And then we roll this by bringing the bottom of the nori to the top of the ingredients, while using the makisu to help shape the roll. So hold the bottom of the makisu with your thumbs, while your forefingers hold the ingredients in place. And then bring this up slowly and wrap the ingredients. And at this point, the filling should be completely wrapped, but this top part of the nori is still visible. From here, tighten the roll by pulling on this top part of the makisu away from you, while holding the roll with your other hand. Then we continue rolling by pulling this bottom part of the makisu away from you. It should just kind of naturally roll onto itself. Now apply some pressure from the top and sides. Take off the makisu, and there you go. And then from here, I like to clean up the ends a little bit by aligning the edge of the makisu with the end of the roll, and then pushing in on the rice. Same thing on the other side. And you could just kind of push around the shrimp on this side. That's it. And since we're making 3 rolls, I'm just going to wrap this with plastic for now and leave it off to the side. It's better to cut these all together at the end, right before we serve it or eat them. And I'll explain this when we get to the cutting part, but I like to leave about 3 inches of extra space up here with the plastic. And don't worry, there's a reason for this. Alright, now the second roll is going to be a standard uramaki or inside out roll, but we're going to put a layer of avocado on top. And the rolling steps are very similar, pretty much identical to what I just explained with the first roll, so I'm not going to get into as much detail with these other 2 rolls. Okay, so this one we're going to lay the nori horizontally, again with the rough side facing up, always rough side up. Then same, grab a ball of rice about the size of an apple, spread it from edge to edge. Now flip it over and add in the fillings. This time we're only putting in some cucumber, 1 piece of kanikama split in half, and 2 pieces of shrimp tempura. And make sure the tails are both facing outwards. Now same concept for rolling. Bottom of the nori to the top of the ingredients. Tighten, and then continue rolling. Apply some pressure, and then clean the edges. Now let's put this aside and we'll cut the avocado to layer on top. And I teach this in my how to cut avocado video, but I'll cover it again here but more briefly. So with this other half of the avocado we didn't use, first we'll take the seed out and then peel the skin as cleanly as possible. And it helps to rip it off in small pieces if it doesn't come off easily. Okay, now we lay this down horizontally on our cutting board, and we're going to cut 1/8 inch slices all the way down, and you want to keep the slices in place. And the trick is to use the top part of the knife and make sure it's clean, and slice it through the avocado like this. Okay, watch. Now from here, we just gently lay it down either to the left or right, doesn't really matter, until it's about the same length as the roll. So right about there. And then now we very carefully slide our knife under the avocado and place it on top of our roll. And then grab a sheet of plastic wrap and place it on top. Then we're going to apply gentle pressure with our makisu to shape it. But be careful not to push too hard here, you don't want to squash the avocados. And that's it. Now let's move on to our last roll. So this last one is going to be a futomaki or big roll style. And this is where we're going to use the full sheet of nori. Now, if you don't have a full sheet, you can either place 2 half sheets side by side or just make half at a time. So place the nori down with the rough side up again. And this time we're going to leave about 1 inch of space at the top of the nori because this roll has the seaweed on the outside and we need some overlap space for the nori to stick together. Okay? And it will be almost double the amount of rice we used for the last 2 rolls. Okay, now we add in the fillings. So the avocados, right down the center here, cucumber, kanikama, asparagus, and shrimp tempura. Now same concept, but we want to bring the bottom of the nori to the top part of the rice this time. And again, continue rolling, apply even pressure, and clean up the ends. And done. Great job. Now let's get into cutting these. So starting with our first roll, and this one actually might be the toughest one to cut since we'll be cutting it into 5 pieces. You could cut it into 4 or 6 if you like, but 5 tends to be the perfect size. And you can take the plastic off or leave it on. I actually prefer to cut it with the plastic because it keeps it a little cleaner. However, there is a trick to it. When you wrap the roll, make sure to have at least 3 to 4 inches of extra plastic on the top here. And the key is to not cut through this part. As long as you follow that, the plastic sheet will come right off all intact in one piece. That way you're not picking off a bunch of smaller pieces. Alright, so watch. And there you go. See how the plastic came off as one sheet? Now the second roll is the same. These types of rolls with something layered on top are much easier to cut with the plastic still on. In this one we're going to cut it into 8 pieces. And I like to do this by cutting it right in half first, and then each half into halves again, and so on. Now again, make sure you have that extra space of plastic on top. And if you need, you can use the makisu to shape the roll again. And then just pull the plastic off. And that's it. Alright, on to our last one. Now this one, we don't use any plastic. And it's up to you if you want to cut it into 8 or 10. I like to cut mine into 8, so it's the same as the last roll. Half, 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 half. Watch. Alright, and that's it for cutting. Let's start plating these now. Now, how you plate is totally up to you, and it can be a really fun and creative part of making sushi. So find some cool platters or dishes and test things out. I'm going to plate each roll on its own, but there's really no right or wrong. Now I like to drizzle some spicy mayo and unagi sauce on this guy here. And then for the avocado one, we'll grind some sesame seeds on top. And the futomaki, we'll leave it as is. Alright, and that is it guys. 3 different ways you can make a shrimp tempura roll. And of course, there are a bunch of variations and ways you can use shrimp tempura in sushi. So get creative, add in different ingredients, and have fun with it. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about making sushi, be sure to check out my book. It's called How to Make Sushi at Home, a fundamental guide for beginners and beyond. It's filled with recipes just like this and much, much more. Everything from sourcing the right fish, properly cutting sashimi, sushi etiquette, I mean the list goes on and on. So if you've always wanted to learn how to make sushi but didn't know where to start, well, this book is your start line. I'll have links in the description below for those that are interested. Alright, great job guys. And now that you know 3 different ways to make a shrimp tempura roll, learn 3 ways to make the Philadelphia roll by going to this video right over here. As always, feel free to leave any questions or comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Arigatou gozaimasu.